Perfect. I'll get started. So again, good morning, and thank you so much for joining our webinar. My name is Abhi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Okkular, and will be one of your hosts, along with Ben from Comestri and Kate from Searchspring. We were having a few tech issues, but I think we all sorted, so we should get going from there. We have a pretty packed webinar for you all today, so I'll dive straight into it. The purpose and plan for today is quite straightforward. It's threefold. One, to really deep dive into understanding why is product information required? Why is it important? Second is cover how do you centralize this process of keeping the product information in one place and the impact that this has on on-site search and at the end product discoverability. So we'll go through that. The theme is that we'll understand what are the current challenges and the three products being from Comestri, Searchspring, Okkular, how can they work individually and together to link this process, make it easier, make it better. And we have got some fantastic retail speakers who will share how they are using it, what are the things they faced previously, and how it's addressing it. So with that, let me introduce to you the other speakers we have today. So the way we have structured this is to keep it quite pragmatic, practical, and therefore we are doing it in following ways. We'll have 3 15-minute chats followed by 10-minute Q&A. So the first conversation I'll be having with Sarah, who's the e-commerce product manager from Kukai, and myself. This will be led and followed by Juan from Slick Media, previously with Dish, along with Ben from Comestri, and followed by Jacinda from 2XU and Kate from Searchspring. As you can see, Kate is also wearing 2XU. She's in uniform, so she's got that going. And there's a reason we have structured these conversations in the following way. So I want to just provide you some brief context before we start the 15-minute chats that we have. So let's understand what are the current process that is being followed typically by an e-com retailer. They would initially create product tags, attributes, descriptions. This will be followed by hosting all that information in one central location, or ideally. And the impact of that will be then to make sure that it is on the actual site search, so it makes it easy and relevant. But here's the challenge. Tags and attributes are expensive, onerous, difficult to generate. It is definitely not all in one place. It is in multiple locations, multiple files, etc. And the impact of all this happens on the on-site search. And that impacts product discoverability. Now, needless to say, this is where the three products whom we are hosting today come in. We have got Okkular that helps out in generating the product tags automatically from the product image directly. In the beginning, saves time. The second part is Comestri helps with centralizing all that using their PIM. So there's one source of truth. And the benefit of all this gets lifted up and used by Searchspring, which makes it relevant and easy to do navigation on-site, which impacts straight away on your product discovery. Now, with that as the context, which is why we had the conversations flowing in the following way, let's start with our first 15-minute chat. And we've got Sarah, who is joining us from Kukai, Australia. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining. Really appreciate it. Now, before we deep dive into questions, would love to just get a quick overview. I know we all know Kukai, but it'll be just great to hear from yourself about Kukai and, of course, yourself as well, please.
Sure. So my name's Sarah. I'm the e-commerce product manager here at Kukai. I've been with the business for about 8 to 9 years now, and in the e-com space of Kukai for about 6 or 7 of the years from its infancy. Just a bit of background on the e-com sort of story at Kukai. We were a bit late or later to market, I would say. jumped on the e-com boat a little bit later from potentially some of our other competitors. So yeah, the e-com business at Kukai is only about 7 years old. Yeah, otherwise bricks and mortar for us have been around for close to 30 years now, with over 200 stores across Europe and Australia and New Zealand. So yeah, I guess the story of the business, or I guess the backbone of the business, traditionally has been that bricks and mortar, retail, women's fashion retail. That is, we are a business that is vertically integrated with our manufacturing, which we'll kind of touch on, I think, in some of the points later on today. But yeah, just a bit to highlight there, we are a vertically integrated business with our own manufacturing facilities. So we deliver product weekly to our stores, our retail stores in Australia and New Zealand, particularly every week. And with that comes online as well, and e-com receiving product every week, which means there's quite a bit of work to do weekly, and maintenance of our product catalogues for the e-com space and the online store. And yeah, I guess just the whole journey around that. And I guess where, for us, Okkular plays a big role in that.
Thanks for that, Sarah. And I think just to provide some context, we have been very fortunate and lucky enough to be working with Sarah and the team at Kukai. What we do is exactly the same. We help them in the process of automating the tags and attribute generation. And I think that's where we decided this would be great to be able to provide some context to the broader audience as well. Now, just so that I can understand from your side as well, Sarah, why is before using Okkular, how were you sort of generating product information, especially given, as you said, you generating new products on a monthly basis, weekly basis, and what was that process like? And also, if you can cover just basic of why is product information important to your business in the e-com world?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, the product creation process, I think probably from the onset of the beginning of e-com here at Kukai, was just downright manual, Excel sheets, CSVs, data entry. A lot of that initial, I guess, setup was, a lot of manual work. And I think as well as a business, or for those of us who had begun or had been part of the journey from its infancy, has been, lots of trial and error. And so, exploring solutions or exploring other methods of ways to, make the process more efficient for us, has been quite an extensive journey. So, predominantly manual work, and, over the course of the last, I'd say 2 to 3 years, we've really ramped up those automation pieces and looked at, different solutions and in how we create product data. And I think one of the biggest wins for myself personally, when it came to creating products and having to maintain product attributes like tags, and in that whole process, definitely where Okkular came to the rescue in that regard. And it just so happened to be at a point in time where we were onboarding with a new search and merch provider. We migrated from our previous provider, and our new sort of scope of work, or what was required from a search and merch point of view, required extensive product tags for us to be able to filter correctly, search correctly, and all that sort of stuff. So, we sort of killed 2 birds with 1 stone in that regard, and, came across Okkular. And, I honestly thought, had we not had Okkular at the time of going through that onboarding process with our search solution, there would have been a lot of, sort of painful, I guess, manual key entries.
Yeah, and I think that's where we were briefly talking as prep to this sort of conversation, that you've got obviously talented people obviously in the organization. The last thing you want them to be doing is doing some mundane work which is not as enticing and exciting, but at the same time is needed to be done so that you can actually leverage that. And I think that's what you said, that was one of the reasons for you to start thinking about automation, Because you say you don't want, it is important, but it is so prone to errors if it is manually done.
Absolutely. And yeah, being a business that delivers new product every week, that can range from, I'd say minimum 20, 30 products a week, sometimes more, depending on sort of, planning and what's coming out of our manufacturing facilities. So to be able to maintain, I guess, that maintenance element of ensuring these products are tagged correctly. We will do a print, for example, it's the same print across a dress, a top and a skirt. So we need to ensure that consistency across prints, across colours, our seasonal colours, our core colours, and all the attributes that come with it, all the products are updated and have the right data associated with it. So it's quite a weekly task, and Okkular, we're able to have that automated process there. We're still able to review it, tweak it, or provide our feedback for the AI to learn a little bit more about. We might classify this particular print as that, or this color is indeed this, or whatever it might be. With the number of new products that we have coming in every week, it's definitely a godsend.
And I think if I can just double click on the, say, once the information has been generated, the tags, attributes, how best do you leverage that in your business today? Because obviously, once you've got the information, you can use it in multiple ways for filtering, SEO, creating specific types of color filters, etc. So it would be great to be able to help get some context on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest key thing for us, I think, is kind of the golden nugget, is because of the extensive range of product that we have from an apparel point of view, specifically, mini dresses, maxi dresses, midi dresses, right through to pants, tops, skirts, etc. Having those filtering tags that Okkular, does the heavy lifting for us, and is able to assign this particular dress to be able to be filtered as midi or printed or a black dress or whatever it might be. I think that is where that's our golden nugget, because of the range that we have in a season. The number of products that we can have, we can accumulate across our spring summer collection, for instance, or just the amount of product that drops weekly. That is definitely the biggest game changer for us, to have that automation there to be able to assist with filtering. Not only filtering search, we want to search black dresses. Okkular has done the heavy lifting, as opposed to someone sitting there having to, do that mundane task of black dress tag type of thing. So, I think that's definitely been the biggest win, since partnering with Okkular. And I really can't imagine what it would have been like otherwise. It would have been quite a, it would have been a few long days having to be spent, I guess, maintaining that product catalog and just ensuring that the products are correct, or the data is right that's coming back, and ensuring that it's relevant. I guess that probably covers that section.
And also, Sarah, one of the two themes which are emerging in e-commerce definitely is one is personalization, and that's everyone wants to go towards that. And there's a lot of discussion on how to get there. But how do you sort of see this in your business on how? Because ultimately, we all want to be able to serve the right product to the right customer at the right price, and I know that's the ultimate goal. But there are these building blocks to get to there. And how do you see that in your business, and what's sort of Kukai doing to enable that?
Yeah, I think you sort of hit the nail on the head there with the note on building blocks. That's something we're definitely really heavily deep diving into at the moment, or working through. But the solution that Okkular has, I think for us, we probably only have really opened up to perhaps the product tag attributes, for example, is one element that we use, where we know that Okkular is able to do some other things for us. And so I think sort of in the next 12 to 18 months is really exploring those other solutions or elements that Okkular is able to provide, and really, I guess, start to open up and see how we can sort of use that towards things like personalization and things like that. So it's been, pretty sort of a journey that hasn't ended. It's still very much a work in progress, and that building block. And I feel like, now we've built some solid foundations from where we're at currently, and sort of looking forward to seeing what's coming up ahead.
And I think early on in the discussion when you were working together also was that the way I think Kukai and yourself are approaching this is that, look, there is the creative elements to the business, and then there is things which we can automate and we should automate. So we are looking at ways, yes, and I think it was to be able to see that, it's not an overnight thing. It will, yes, we'll work towards automating some of the things which will get better over time, but the creative process is where is still owned and has high touch, high human element to it. And I think that's a way to sort of approach it. One maybe final thing, and maybe stepping back slightly broader in a way, is leading up to Christmas and Black Friday and next year, what are maybe the 2-3 key things that you and Kukai are looking at in terms of priority for the next sort of say 12 months or 18 months?
I think the big thing for us is probably the biggest thing, and I'm sure it is the same way across many other businesses, that customer experience, having bricks and mortar stores as well, really unifying that and translating that through to online from that element. And I think having from a product point of view specifically, really, I guess, looking at ways to vamp up and elevate from where we've gone to, from where we're at currently, to where we can be from a product point of view online. But I think one of the biggest things for us, and I know, many others across the business that engage with e-com and from a product point of view, is just having that relevancy there with, the filters. And, I get asked all the time, how in the world do you have time to, categorize, X amount of dresses that we've got in the collection this season, or whatever it might be, or how do you maintain that weekly? And the solution that Okkular has been phenomenal, where that's been, I guess, real the backbone. Essentially, I call it the backbone because just with the amount of products that we do receive weekly and what we accumulate through the season, right up until Boxing Day or Black Friday, Cyber Mondays, the product catalogue is quite large from our perspective. So when we've got very same but different dresses, it might be the same dress, same style dress, but in a different fabric across 10 colors, maintaining that on a weekly, monthly basis is pretty, it can be pretty heavy, but, having Okkular there as the backbone for that element, I think has been, has definitely been the godsend for us. So I look forward to seeing, the sort of the new paths or the next sort of step in the journey that we will take with Okkular to explore the other solutions of what Okkular has.
Thanks for that, Sarah. And also, I think one of the things you had mentioned in one of our earlier calls is that, one is there's so much work being done on the understanding the customer. What we try and do along with obviously the other partners we've got, Searchspring, Comestri, is to really understand the product. And obviously, that becomes your product DNA. And then if you can marry up the customer understanding, and that's your journey into personalization. So I think
absolutely,
conversation helped break it down into very simple ways as opposed to something a bit more esoteric. So now thanks again for that, Sarah. And I know there'll be questions which we'll take at the end. Really appreciate these insights, and thank you for all the support. Maybe what we'll do is we'll move next to Mr. Juan and Ben from Comestri. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Savvy and great insight, Sarah. So I guess just to introduce this section, my name is Ben Cook. I'm here from Comestri. My role here at Comestri is the General Manager of Business Development and Marketing, for those that don't know. And And I have the pleasure of speaking with Juan today, who is now at Slick Media, but has a background with Dish. Juan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So long story short, I've been in the e-com game for a while, and Ben's known me for about at least over 5 years now. So I floated around the Waterworks, the likes of like Scotch and Soda. Back in the day, I used to work for Super Retail Group, and more recently was Dish. So I completely understand what Sarah's going through with all the clothing aspect for the last few years of my career. But now I've ventured off into doing my own thing so I can actually help everyone. And that's sort of been my focus, to basically build my own business and start from that. So I'd like to, basically use my potential and insights on everything that I've learned over the years to really sort of help the industry in however I can. So that's me in a nutshell. I don't know what else I could say.
Good stuff. Thanks, mate. Thank you. And for those that don't know who are on the call, Comestri. So we want to centralize that product data, that product information. So we naturally have a channel to Okkular. So always the hope is that we'll take all of that rich data that's been produced by those guys. That allows us to kind of then centralize that information in the PIM, what we term the PIM. And then for us, we then want to start looking at how we can enrich that either further and or then start using our channel management tool to then push that out into different directions. And I guess, Juan, in your kind of experience of using Comestri, you've gone through that whole process, right, of integrating into, pushing data into Comestri, enriching that, and then pushing that out for product discovery. But then also, I guess we want to touch on a bit today, what can we do from an automation aspect to make that data more discoverable? Do you want to speak to that a wee bit?
Yeah, sure. So I guess over the years, working in the fashion industry, you really get to know your product data down to that granular level. And when you start working with different marketplaces and different feeds that you need to send this data to, you realize, okay, my core data is about this much, and I need it to be this extensive to cater for every single channel like Facebook, Google, eBay, Iconic, and all these things. So in order to get to that point, this is where we need to sort of enrich the, expand on the core data that we've actually got and build out from that. And then building out from that means it's not just for the feed itself, but it's also to do some smart sort of business rules around why you're doing it. So a good example would be, especially for ROI, is building out a tag to say this product is a high margin product versus a low margin product, or you flag it as an overstock item. Another business decision that I've seen over the years is like, okay, we've got this particular style, we've had it for 5 years, it's sitting in the warehouse, it's taken up room. And if you start doing your homework behind the scenes, you go, okay, it's costing us this much to house this product. We need to do something with it, right? So then it becomes more of a business decision on warehouse space, So it's not always just about marketing. Like there's other things happening, beyond e-commerce manager, but more sort of the warehousing of it. Essentially, that is the, your bread and butter of what's pushing the sale out. So, essentially that data is basically what you make it, and as opposed to just pushing out stuff for marketing, there's business rules that come into play that, by doing all this extra data work, you can make better decisions on, how you want to push that data out visually. And also from that structure of why you want to push that product out to basically clear it or sell it, or, whatever marketing you want to do around it. Yeah.
And that's a really interesting point. I guess, nowadays there's quite a lot made of product experience management, and this term that comes in with PXM, and what does product look like on site for the visual aspects. But you've touched on a couple of key points there in terms of, when I think about my inventory, when I think about my products, and I think about selling that more, then being able to push that out to e-com, search and merch, and marketplaces. We're touching on attributes and aspects of product data that do come into overstocked items, high margin, low margin, and things that you wouldn't necessarily talk to from a visual perspective. And so, with your experience, I guess, at Dish and at Scotch, were you able to kind of analyze that and then, and then feed that information into a kind of centralized PIM to push that out?
Yeah, and particularly with Dish, that was one thing that we touched on with, it's sort of, well, I guess like sale versus full. Okay, a good one is like sale versus a full price item. Whether we tell Google Shopping, we want to run an ad just on full price, because we're talking about new season. So really enriching that, making that attribute specifically for Google, so we can actually push the data feed purely just on full price, down to that level. So using the automation within Comestri, it was basically where we set it up. So we build the attribute, we build the rules around it. So when an item, isn't on promo, we mark it as full price, and vice versa. So that essentially, that automation, those rules that we set up, really build out the attributes automatically to then feed out the data of what we're doing with it later. So I guess that's one example.
Yeah. I guess it also plays the importance of range visibility, though, when you do sort of send that data into merchandising systems, and the ability for those systems to then start to rank that information, right?
Definitely. And the last thing you want to do is send data to Google of stuff you're not selling or have no inventory as well. So that's another key thing that really helps in that automation process. So you're not actually just feeding out junk to Google. I'm sure we've all been there before. We were like, okay, we've got a lot of products that are getting turned off for a reason, or they're not accepted by Google in that sense. So it's just a good way to slowly clean that up and just automate it basically.
Yeah. And just talking to a little bit of some of the other automation stuff that we do, were you utilizing kind of the automation from a categorization perspective? So again, looking at different attributes that you might get around a product and then kind of where those sit, or the pricing and range aspects of products and where they may sit within the categorized realms within e-com and marketplaces.
Yeah, and I guess back to the attributes, and that's where that sort of plays a big role. Like if we wanted to push, I know the big buzzword was sustainable. If we wanted to push a whole category of sustainable products that were flagged as sustainable, for example, you work off that attribute, build the rules to attribute that, into that category. You build a category set out of that, which then becomes your feed to wherever you want to go. So using those rules basically to mark anything that's labeled as sustainable goes into a category or updates the category automatically.
Yeah, and with that in mind, I think Kate will probably touch on some of this stuff as well as part of her presentation. But we often think about the realm of bestsellers, and again, just trying to move stock through the business, when it's at its most profitable sense. How would you go around kind of instructing systems to take that challenge on?
Yeah, I guess it all comes down to marketing. Like if you pin your products at the very top, it's going to be a bestseller every week or every day. It's simple as that. And we'll give ourselves a pat on the back, but that's exactly what's going to happen, and your results will show that. So, and I guess that's where the AI comes into play to really sort of tailor that data feed to the user, basically. But yeah, the results pretty much are filtered by what rules you're putting in there. So,
yep. And I guess from I'm always keen to kind of share some practical examples of this. We've talked a bit about measurable ROI. Within the business, where do you sort of see that process sort of starting? How does that kind of come together when you look at it in a more holistic approach?
I guess when you really start to look at those things that I mentioned earlier, so things that are important to your business, like, okay, your warehouse space might be, you might be overstocked with a certain item for over certain years. You need that return on investment that's just sitting there. It's costing you money every day that you've got it there. So, really delving into those little pockets of your business that you're not really looking at, because it's just sitting there. You've got it online, you think, yep, it's great. Okay, but how can you target that to, as a business rule to get the ROI on that as well? So, it basically comes down to, your business and what you want I guess, clear in that sense to either make space or make money. I don't know. It really comes down to your business, I guess. I've seen it all, but it's just more like, yeah, do you write it off? Do you sell it? Do you mark it down? Do you clear it? Like, what are you doing with this stock? Or, you know, what are you doing with it? Or, you know, are we revamping this product from 5 years ago and we reselling it again? Like, what's the deal? Like, yeah. It really comes down to, I guess, what the business wants out of their stock, and yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. And so I think just, you know, back to this concept of automation, and again, I'll pick up on Abby's kind of final question, which is generally surrounding the time of the year at the moment when we start to head down a click frenzy and then into the cyber weekend path later on in the year. You know, there is a lot of activity that starts to happen now. You know, we see it with our own clients. You know, they're all, you know, if they've still got hair, pulling their hair out. So I guess, you know, what's as a retailer from yourself, you know, what's any insights from you, know, for any of those other retailers that we've got on the call at the moment about, you know, preparing data and setting up that challenge that comes with a fairly frantic November?
Yeah, I think obviously being prepared is the goal of having as much data as you can for your product. You know, there's cases where you start looking at your product and you're like, I don't even have the weights on this thing, and you know, all these things come into play when you go to shipping. So it's really just doing your housekeeping on your products, and just making sure you've really enriched all your data, so then you can make better business decisions and rules on feeds to whatever you're going to market, you know, for Black Friday or things like that. And obviously every year everyone goes on sale a little bit earlier. So the sooner you have this stuff prepared, the sooner you'll be ready to launch, or, you know, secret launch before the day, as everyone does. So it's just, I guess, just being prepared with as much product data as you can and attributes that you can feed off.
Yeah, perfect. And given that we'll segue into Kate, and you've been a user as well of Searchspring. You know, when you're thinking about centralizing data, you know, how often do you have in mind, you know, those endpoints, you know, those tools like your merchandising system and your search system?
Yeah, look, there was a time when, you know, there's all these other merchandising tools out there, and because I have used Searchspring, it is so vital to us to actually being able to move things around. I know natively Shopify doesn't really do that. Don't know what the plan is there, but we have things like Searchspring that come into play and actually help us move things around and build rules around the data that, you know, that we've got in there. Connecting it with automation will just, you know, enhance it on a better scale, and then enable us to do a lot more, you know, based on those, I guess, those business decisions that I touched on earlier. So yeah, being able to use, you know, Searchspring in that sense, yeah, it's the end goal of like getting the data in and then presenting it in the best way possible, is how I can put it.
No, that's great. Look, mate, awesome. Always a pleasure to talk to you. On behalf of Comestri and Okkular and Searchspring, we really appreciate your time. And Kate, I will hand over the reins to yourself.
As you can tell, I am a huge 2XU fan. So I'm a head of APAC at Searchspring. I don't claim to be a high performance athlete, but I have completed a number of endurance challenges like Kokoda and Kilimanjaro and the New York Marathon. So I can really relate to the philosophy of like preparation, performance, and recovery. So really excited, Jacinda, to have you joining us today to talk through 2XU and your e-commerce journey. So why don't you give us a quick kind of introduction to the 2XU story, and also you and the team's e-commerce journey as well.
Sure. It's great to be here, and I've really enjoyed listening to everyone else speak. So 2XU, for a lot of people actually don't realize it's called 2XU, but 2XU is actually a sports performance brand. So we're born of triathlon. That's our heritage. What we do really well is triathlon and compression. So we make some of the most advanced compression garments in the world, particularly some of our tights. We're really industry leaders in the area of compression. In terms of our e-com journey, so I've been with the business since February. This year at 2XU, we've really been focused about resetting our completely resetting everything in the business. And that includes everything from, in-store experience to the way that we, our processes internally, but also our tech stack. So we were on pretty much the whole Salesforce Commerce Cloud suite. And in February, we moved across to Shopify. And with that, we completely migrated our stack, everything you can imagine at the same time, which was a huge task. But it's really been about setting the foundations this year for growth, to accelerate growth for us next year. So even just moving to Shopify, has made a huge difference to the business. But moving to Searchspring has made an enormous difference for us as well. So I'm excited to talk through what we've been working on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to unpacking that with you, and I also really appreciate your time. I know you've got so much on, including we're in the middle of Click Frenzy, and yeah, you and the team get through a huge amount, but really excited to really kind of unpack some of those learnings, because I think there's some really good actionable kind of insights and tips that people on the call will be able to relate to and potentially apply as well. Let's first talk about not everybody's favorite topic, but something really important, and getting your data ready for being able to use that data more on the front end.
So we knew when we were coming across to Searchspring that we were only going to get as much value as our data had. So there was a really huge task internally for us to go through and clean our data. The way that we kind of jumped ship from our last platform onto Shopify was in a bit of a kind of urgent manner. So we had a lot of tidying up to do, particularly around all of our metadata, particularly around tags. When we did launch the site, we were running off an app that was creating tags for us. So there was, it was creating tags for product types, and which, is great if it's working efficiently, but this one wasn't. So it was just creating a lot of inconsistencies with our tagging. There was a lot of data there that we didn't want to surface, in the search journey or in the user journey online. So we approached it in a really holistic way to begin with. We looked through all of our search data. We looked through all of our landing pages people were coming to most often, how they were converting. And we looked at our navigation as a whole. So looking at our mega nav and looking at, did that tell the story for us? Did it represent us as a brand? We kind of had compression and try kind of hidden in there. So we surfaced that to really stand out in the nav. And we really started there. We looked at what people were searching for, and we rebuilt that structure. And then we looked at how we could use tags for when we moved to Searchspring to also surface that data within search and for our merchandising.
Yeah, that's great. So although cleaning up data, not always the funnest task, vitally important. So
very rewarding though.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you have a wine either during or afterwards. So let me go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to talk through what that actually means from a front end perspective. So one of the first things we're able to do with that kind of enriched data is the enhanced sort and filter options. Obviously moving across to Shopify, then not being able to have sort and filter options on a search result as well as a category result would have been critical for you, because you're coming from a platform that had that. We know that the top 3 converting sort options are typically best selling, newest, and highest rating. So giving users the ability to actually sort in that way, I think is really valuable, and using the review data to allow shoppers to sort, filter, and also elevate those top review products up in the results as well. And you're using Okendo for reviews?
We are using Okendo, yeah. So we use Okendo on all 8 of our Shopify storefronts, and we syndicate that across all regions except Japan.
Yeah, Fantastic. So really a key one to solve, but let's talk about the filters. So obviously size and color filters are pretty much like the norm and the standard. We do some neat things from a color swatch perspective on site. A lot of your products are black, but the logo color has been really important. But what I really wanted to kind of just kind of unpick a little bit was around your enhanced kind of filter options and how you're helping shoppers use some of that additional attribute data to find what they're looking for.
Yeah. Just while you're on swatches as well, the solution that Searchspring built for us was that those swatches are generated by a product tag, which has been an absolute game changer for us. It saves us so much time. It's a product tag with a hex code and 2 hex codes. If it's split, it saves us a huge amount of time because we are a very lean team. But going back to the filter data, so again, we were really looking at what people were searching for. And we also had a really big workshopping session with, our customer care team, with our product team. We talked about things that we felt were important for us from a filtering perspective, but also, we realized that compression and compression levels was one of the key things that customers would get in touch with our team about. So we kind of did a little bit more digging, and we realized that a lot of people that are coming to us that are looking for very specific compression levels. So if you drop down, Kate, you'll see like they're graded. So all of our types fall into a compression grade. So people that are being sent, from physiotherapists or different referrals are coming through and very specifically looking for this compression level. So being able to add that and tag it to all of our products has been a really great tool for us. We also know that people that do use this compression filter are converting higher because they're very, they know what they want. So they're, just them being able to find that really quickly without getting in touch with customer care has dropped our tickets on that, but also just makes it so much easier for the customers. I guess like we're a little bit different in that we are like a sports apparel brand, but we're not a athleisure brand, so we're not really fashion driven. When you come and look for our tights, you're looking for a specific activity or a sports discipline, you're looking for a compression level, and you're looking for like benefits and, can you run in the rain with this product? Can you run in the heat with this product? So I think our filtering is a little bit different to that of like a normal kind of sports or fashion brand.
Yeah, so I shouldn't just go down and grab a coffee in Lane Cove later. I should actually go to the gym. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you can wear Form. You can wear the Form range. Form Stash is a good one for coffee.
Yeah, they're my favorite too.
Yeah, me too.
So let's talk about something that we spoke about last week in terms of having shoppers spend longer on site and ultimately that leading to an increase in conversion. You're doing a lot from an education perspective, as you've touched on. You have a very technical product, and so your use of inline banners is educating shoppers, getting them to spend more on site, but ultimately leading to those conversions. Talk us through that.
Yeah, sure. So one of the challenges that we do have is, particularly for people that are new to the brand, how do we get them on, for example, on our tights page where we've got 80% of our tights are just black and they look the same. But how do we educate people on that collection page level on our range to encourage the click through, to encourage, them wanting to learn more about the product? So we're using the Searchspring inline banners, purely for education at the moment. I know that they're really like for promotional, a lot of people use them to put promotions in place, but we as a business are really, and I'm sure like a lot of people will be the same, but as a business trying to move away from discounting and that kind of roller coaster ride that has been the last 2 years. So education for us is really the key thing we feel in conversion. So our tights are also on the higher price point. So how do we show people that the technical aspect of our tights, and also, the value for money, like what are they getting? So we feel that adding an inline banner like this, straight away you can see that these tights have muscle containment stamping, which is, something that's unique to us, and it actually adds extra compression on the muscles that you use during each sports discipline. So there you'll see for light speed, we've made these tights for running. They support your legs and all the muscles you use when you're running. If you go down a little bit, Kate, you will see that we, and then we have one there for force, which our force range is for training. So you can see there, it looks after your glutes and all of the muscles that you'd use when you're like lifting weights and training in the gym.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you're taking that kind of inline banners, not just replacing it with a promotional message, but really using it for that education. And so what have been the impacts on conversions that you've seen since kind of going live with Searchspring, and since really focused on getting this educational content on site?
Yeah, so we've seen a pretty dramatic increase in our conversion since we moved to Searchspring, particularly in our new markets where we're not as established. In Australia, we are, very established, but there's still so much education to be done in Australia. One thing that we have noticed is, you can see here on the left-hand side, we are using the left banners to drive crew acquisition. So calling out that crew members get free delivery and free returns. And we've seen a really huge increase in people signing up to crew since we launched. And then if you go to the bottom, Kate, you'll see, this is kind of a longer page, but we're using the bottom banners to, drive, like when people get to the bottom of a page, we're using them to try and remove that dead zone and replace it with something educational, or something like to put in their path that's relevant, that they can click through. We know they're looking at tights, they're at the bottom of the page, they're not quite there. So, do they need to know more about compression? On our triathlon pages, we're driving people to like our tech page that talks to the tech in our triathlon suits. And we also we're seeing that people that look at that triathlon page and read about the tech, and also look at the triathlon collection pages, are converting much higher than people that aren't going to that page as well. So we know that using these education pieces in line, with relevant pages and giving a path to keep people on site longer, which we've seen people, since we launched Searchspring, and, the more we add these banners, the more we see the time on site grow, and the amount of pages people are visiting in a session as well.
Yeah, that's great. And what I really love about working with yourself and the team is how much you've leaned into the implementation of Searchspring, and particularly the data, and looking at the data and really looking to understand what's going on, not just on one site globally, but on each individual domain, because one merchandising strategy isn't necessarily performing globally. Talk us through that.
Yeah. I am never one to set and forget something, and I don't think in the world of e-com there should ever be a set and forget for merchandising. One of the biggest challenges that we have is we are a really lean team, and we do have a Shopify Stack with 8 storefronts, 5 of which we manage with one e-com merchandiser. So, as was mentioned before with Shopify, the native merchandising has a long way to go. You've really got the options of sorting by best selling, sorting by newest, which for us just wasn't cutting the cake at all. So what we're doing is applying these layered kind of boost rules that are prioritizing, for example, prioritizing new season, pushing outlet to the bottom. One of the absolute game changers for us, and I'm sure a lot of people will relate at the moment with the mess of freight, and particularly in the US and Canada. In New York, at one point there was a backlog of container ships at port you could see from space. And so our new season was just bobbing on the water there for months. So we had this issue of, even in our never out ranges. We were selling out and we were running out of key sizes. So our merchandiser was going through all the different storefronts and merchandising each page in a way that we were trying to prioritize our top sellers, but trying to push down things with broken size curves. And it was just, it's such a manual process. It was something that just pretty much sucked up all of her time. So now we have these layered boost rules, and then we have a subsort on all the rules that applies, GA revenue kind of low. It's prioritizing our new season. It's pushing outlet to the bottom. Only things with more than like a 70% size curve are coming up at the top. And then it's sorting by our most popular products. Another thing that we noticed as well, with that stock arriving late in the US and Canada, was applying these same rules that we had used on our other storefronts that were performing really well for us, weren't working in Canada. And, we did a bit of digging to see what was happening there. And we realized that because all of our kind of all of our winter stock was late arriving, we were actually prioritizing things that were bestsellers, but in summer. So it wasn't really seasonally relevant anymore. Because with Searchspring, we have applied a tag to all of our products that are good for like cold weather, wet weather. We were easily able to just go into Searchspring and add those to our boost rules and layer them in so that we were still sorting things in the way that we were in our other regions that was working for us, but we were then prioritizing things that were like, because we saw in search trending, we saw like thermal, alpine, terms like this. So we pushed everything up, and we saw our conversion lift 50% the next week. So, and that was the task that would absolutely have taken our ecom merchandiser days to do with Shopify, that we were able to do in 20 minutes with Searchspring. One of the really key things I think as well, because obviously leading into Black Friday and this really busy period, for me, knowing that I can go to bed and Searchspring is merchandising my site based on stock availability is an absolute dream.
And it means we can get you on a webinar when Click Frenzy is running, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, Searchspring has made a huge difference to our conversion, but operationally, it's really it's been just an absolute game changer for us. And it's allowed me for my team as well, because one thing that I'm really passionate about is developing my team. And, I have had that ecom merchandiser just spending her day dropping things in Shopify, just really being the arms of ecom and doing. And now, I can start teaching her about strategy, and she can, she looks after site conversion now. She can kind of start learning and growing as well with the business and with our stack as we grow.
Yeah, I love that. And I could talk to you all day. I know we can have very long conversations, but that takes us to time. I do want to open the floor up to a panel discussion, because I can see we've got lots of questions coming through. But just wanted to say thank you for sharing those insights. I think what you are doing through your use of data and really focusing on finding those incremental uplifts is seeing the results already. And I know that you're not slowing down. So Abby, shall I invite you back to do the Q&A?
Yeah, perfect. No, thank you, Jacinda. That was amazing, Juan and Sarah, for sharing all those insights. I think it's been fantastic. I can see a few Q&A questions coming through already. I've got a bunch already I want to ask, but maybe we can kick off with there's been a few questions about Shopify or WooCommerce. I know, Juan, you've made a comment already, but would love to just get your thoughts to start with. And then I know, Jacinda, you mentioned about Shopify. So I think maybe broadly, let's look at Shopify versus others. Maybe that would be a...
And I think over time, I've had the great opportunity to actually try so many content management systems and e-commerce platform systems, both government and private. So I've actually seen a fair bit what's out there in my time. And in terms of simplicity, Shopify, to anyone who's new to the business or working in the e-commerce space, it's still learning. It's built so simply from an operational perspective, but also has the complexity that they're still constantly building to really like ramp up, you know, and you can, I always say this, there's always an app, right? There's no problem. There's always a solution. There's always an app, and someone's already done something to sort of meet that criteria. If not, it's coming soon. So that's why I sort of end up going with Shopify for the majority of the time, because it already has the extensive things behind it to, I guess, to help everyone grow.
Perfect. Jacinda, Sarah, I know both of you use Shopify, so I would take it obviously big fans of that. And anything additional to add on why the use of Shopify?
Yeah, I'll just add as well, but previous to coming to 2XU, I was consulting. And so I've worked with a lot of different platforms as well. A lot of huge challenges with a lot of different platforms. And, you know, Shopify for me is just, it's such a reliable platform. Like, you know, they don't have outages. It's just the stability in Shopify and the ability to try new things as well. You know, there is an app for everything, but also you can really easily like just add an app and then delete an app, and you can try a new function and you can see if it works. So if you do want to invest in, you know, a new functionality for the site, you can use an app to get a feel for how your customer is going to like it and what it's going to do for the business before you invest, you know, X amount of dollars in developing that custom.
Yeah, I agree. And then similar to what Juan said earlier, just the simplicity of Shopify, I think, is just a pinnacle point there. Probably a little bit of a different experience for Kukai. We've always been with Shopify Plus from the onset of our e-commerce journey. We did explore other e-com solutions, but I think, yeah, it really came down to that simplicity in terms of maintenance and I guess, the ability to scale and grow, which we've been able to do, and it's been able to keep up and vice versa. But I guess also the journey of growing with Shopify growing with us, but just that learning curve has been, I think, a lot less daunting, probably in comparison to some of the other solutions that are out there.
Right. And a few more questions coming up. Sorry, there was a few in the chats and a few in the questions as well. There's a lot of discussion about the most popular search results. And I think this might be, and I think the question over here is, do you have a way to see what are the most popular search results on site? And then how do you actually take it forward to say, okay, this was a search result, this was a filter they went to, or this was not where they could go, and this is where we should have. So I think Kate, Sarah, Jacinda, Juan, I think you guys will be perfect to be able to deal in on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and probably Jacinda as well, because with obviously with Searchspring, then we have very detailed search insights and search insight reporting all the way through to conversions. Jacinda, what have your search insights told you around popular searches?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's hands down compression socks is always our top search term. But, you know, there have been some search things we've uncovered from search that have been able to influence our product development as well. We saw a lot of people looking for polos. We didn't sell polos. We've just released them. But we spend a lot of time. We really spend a lot of time in Searchspring. It's really replaced, you know, our main kind of data point that we go to, looking at zero result searches, looking at with Searchspring, you can see at a search term level how that search converts. So we spend a lot of time going through looking at what people are looking for, but also making sure that we're uncovering the relevant product for them. And then what you can also do is you can create, like, you know, in Shopify terms, it would be like a collection or a landing page for that search term. So for us, when people are searching for recovery, we pop inline banners in that search result, talking to recovery, talking to the tech around our recovery. And then you can see the lift with the conversion as you go through and optimize. So we've only been on Searchspring for a few months now. So we're still, you know, this is a moving, evolving thing for us. But, you know, it's a very powerful tool for looking at search.
Fantastic. And I think one of the other questions also coming through is about the use of heat maps to understand, usage on login pages, product pages, etc. And what are some of the tools or suggestions that you guys are already using or would suggest the audience to go in and have a look? That could be maybe anyone, one, Jacinda, Sarah.
Yeah. I was going to say I've used heat maps in the past before. I mean, you're always going to be your worst critic when you come to your website and you'll look at it every single day and you'll think it's perfect. And then when you start looking at heat maps, you're like, okay, someone's clicking on this thing. We haven't made it a CTA. We need to do something about it. So it, for the most part, it does become relevant to a certain degree. But if you're putting something there on purpose that's not clickable, then you soon start to see these results, and you just work off why it has to be there, and giving, I guess, the user experience a reason to click on it, basically.
Yeah, we've used, well, in the past, I've used a lot of different tools as well. I find Full Story, one of the better ones to use. I also think, though, when you're looking at heat mapping tools, you need to consider how much, you need to consider if you have the resources to actually action anything from those insights, because if you've used those before, you'll know that you can end up with just hours and hours of recordings and not a lot of actionable insight. And it really becomes, I think, a whole nother role within the business for somebody to just sit there and, create insights from that. Full Story is a better one for actually creating actionable insights. But I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think also, Sarah, I think you were going to point something.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Jacinda on that point. It does, it can be quite a time-consuming thing, and I think it's about being wise in how how you're looking at that data. And and to Juan's point as well, you are your own website's biggest critic, so it could be sort of bottomless. It becomes a bottomless process. You just keep digging, you keep looking and looking, and you're like, oh, it's kind of like a never-ending barrel. So I think it's just sort of having that eye to be like, just being wise with taking it bit by bit and not being so overwhelmed, I guess, or sort of taking it too much for gospel.
I think I saw that question come through as well when we were talking about the inline banners and the bottom banners. And we're not using heat mapping for anything at the moment, but what we are doing is just adding UTM parameters to any of those banners that are clickable, so that we're able to attribute, any revenue or conversion uplift from people that are actually interacting with them.
Perfect. And look, as I said, there are a bunch of questions I had, but I'm conscious of time, and as Ben and Kate said, we can probably discuss and pick your brains to talking about bottomless, but we can continue doing that forever. But I'm conscious of everyone's time. So thank you so much, Sarah, Jacinda, Juan, for taking the time out to the audience to join in and listen. Hopefully there was some very pragmatic, insightful things coming out of there. And of course, to Ben and Kate for helping out with this, and of course to Cameron from Comestri and Fiona to helping organize this. Thank you so much, people, and we look forward to staying in touch and working through on other ones. Thank you. See you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Enjoy the day.